Hello, I'm Theolyn Cortens and this is SoulSchool. Welcome to the October 2021 full moon video. And the full moon in October on the 20th is in the sign of Aries. So first of all, I'm going to do a very quick review of what a full moon is about. And you may know already some of this, but it's worth just turning it over before we start unpicking what it might mean in this particular month. So a full moon is when the moon is opposite the sun and the sun's rays are being reflected back to us from the surface of the moon. So the moon looks like a nice big silver disc, like my brooch. And this means that the sun's intense life force energy is being directly reflected, mirrored in the moon. So there's an intensity about this time. And full moon energy, whatever sign, full moon energy can lead to emotional eruptions. It is said that in hospitals for people who are disturbed in one way or another, mentally disturbed, mentally and emotionally disturbed, of course, the staff in those hospitals know very well to keep all the shutters well drawn when the moon is full. And the expression lunatic comes from lunar. And you know, that suggests to us that for many, many generations, people have associated people who are slightly touched by the moon will react more dramatically when the moon is full. And one might even notice it when you're driving, you know, people get a little bit more agitated in their driving habits when the moon is full. So that's a very general thing that we can look at. Emotions are heightened because the sun is pushing all its rays in the direction of the moon and the moon is kind of bouncing them back. Right, so now let's have a look at the moon in the sign of Aries, which is opposite the sun, which is presently in the sign of Libra. And ask ourselves, what might that mean, generally speaking? So the sign of Libra is a sign of the balance. It's a sign where there's a consideration of both parties. You know, this is the scales. The person who is strongly influenced by the sign of Libra will have a tendency to always check out with the other person. A person who is strongly affected by an Aries energy will tend to say, oh, I know what to do, I'm just going ahead, without thinking about the other person. And there's no judgment value in that, because an Aries person has to do that and a Libra person has to do what they do. So when we have the full moon in Aries, what would the tendency be? The tendency would be for the Aries fire, the intensity of inspiration that you get with fire, and the force of the cardinal quality of Aries. Cardinal means initiation or beginning. Aries people like to start things, right? Now, with the full moon, the Aries energy is in a receptive situation because the new moon, which began the cycle, was in the sign of Libra, intensely hidden by the sun's energy. So you can't fulfill, I'm going to go out there and do what I want to do, Aries style, if you're dependent on the seeds that were sown at the new moon under the sign of Libra. So there's a relationship here between what might have been done in the new moon phase and what can happen, can blossom, can flourish with the Aries energy. So it's almost like the Libra energy a couple of weeks ago, that would have been when it was new moon, has had to put something in place, some seeds in place for this point in time when there's Aries energy, for something to be done that is forceful and driving and assertive and all those things we associate with the sign of Aries, which is governed by the planet Mars. I want to go out and get what I want to go out and get. But Libra, 2 weeks earlier, the moon in Libra was saying, we've got to do this in a shared way. So there's the conundrum. There's always a conundrum between the new moon and the full moon, whatever the signs are, because the new moon is always cozied up with the sun and intimate with the sun and able to start something new. And then a couple of weeks later, the full moon is always in the opposite sign. So they're always facing each other off in some way. Whatever elements, whatever qualities are being expressed, there's always some kind of phase between the two of them, of the one sign initiating and the other sign bringing to some kind of fulfillment. So that's what we have to consider. So have a good think about that and then see how it might apply in your personal birth chart. Everyone should have their own personal birth chart. It would be really good if you knew your time of birth, because then you could set one up. But there are ways of getting around there. You can do dowsing and you can do some certain kinds of techniques called rectification. But if you've got enough data, you should easily be able to get your own birth chart, and it's an amazing life tool for anybody to have as part of their spiritual and psychological kit, so that you know what's going on for you. And if you set up a chart and you can see in your chart that the fire cardinal sign of Aries is touching off any of your significant placements, then you will know that this full moon can affect you in that way, in the way that you need to perhaps get things done or acknowledge that something has come to fruition. And when I say significant placements, what I would mean is the placement of the sun, the placement of the moon, the placement of the ascendant. And if you know anything about astrology, there are a couple of other significators that could be important, at least two, what are called the lots, sometimes called the parts, the lot of fortune and the lot of spirit, and the other things that could be significant would be the midheaven. So if any of those points in your chart are Aries, then you've got something really strong happening with this full moon. But if you have any of those significant placements in any of the other cardinal signs, then again the Aries full moon will affect you. It will make you want to strike out and drive for something for yourself in some ways, and that'll depend on the placements that I'm talking about, the sun, the moon, the ascendant, or the lots, or the midheaven. And the cardinal signs will be Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. So all those four signs, if they have strong placements in your chart, will be affected by the full moon. Also, if any of those placements that I've just mentioned happen to be fire signs, other fire signs, Leo or Sagittarius, then you will also feel it strongly. So in many ways, there's not a great escape from any full moon, because there are many placements in your chart that can be affected by the full moon to a greater or lesser extent. So as I say, always make sure that you've got a copy of your chart. I'm going to continue making these new moon and full moon videos, and if you want to log into them and bring your chart along, then you can check out your chart against what is going on. And then the other thing that I want to do for each of the new moon and full moon videos is to consult the angels. Now, I have a particular take on astrology that's been developed over many decades of working with astrology, and then many decades on top of that working with what you could call angelology, certainly with channeling messages from angels. And if you know my work, you will probably have already discovered the angel script cards. And the angel script cards are based on a series of 23 characters that come from some writing called the angelic writing, the writing of the angels. We don't know how old these are, but they occur in Kabbalah, and when I discovered them, they provoked me to tune in and channel a series of messages. So that's just a brief overview. You can find out much more about that on my website, Theolyn.com. So for each full moon and new moon, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select one of the cards from the angel script pack. I'm actually going to just take the 23, which are characters. I want a character, right? And the one that I've selected for this particular full moon is called Zade the Hermit. And you should be able to see there that this character has got two orbs of light joined by a single thread of light, and across the centre there's a little box. And I like to think of this as a character, a person, standing on the ground, feet in the light on the ground, head in the light up in the skies, and the box, or perhaps it's a book, some kind of treasure, is being held in the centre, because the activity is moving from heaven to earth, and in the middle there's an accumulation of some kind of information or wisdom or revelation or prophecy, something useful, right? Now it's called the Hermit, and of course there's a tarot card called the Hermit as well. And the Hermit is usually a withdrawn character who doesn't go out in the world very much, introverted, you might say. And that's interesting when this full moon is in the sign of Aries, because Aries isn't a sign associated with introversion or withdrawal. Aries characters are usually expected to be quite outward going. Although I'll tell you while we're here that Aries is my sun sign, and I'm actually quite a hermit. So I am quite introverted. And I know other Aries people who would be described as introverted. So the Hermit card that just arrived, Zade, here we had a person looking for the light up there, wanting to bring the light down to the ground, and carrying some kind of information. And that's very interesting for Aries, So let's go back and see what happened at the new moon in Libra that might be delivering something now in the way of a revelation or a prophecy or some information that's useful and helpful to you personally or to society at large. What is going to be revealed? Or is it going to still say secret? Have another look at the image. Just trying to find the best way to move him onto the screen. There we go. Yes, is that stuff going to stay in the box? That's an interesting question. The sign of Libra wants to share things. The sign of Aries may be a little bit more contained. The Hermit contains him or herself and meditates in the quiet space. So the box might be a quiet space. So I think there's some kind of warning there, and I'm particularly interested with this full moon that we've got now, which is at one of the later degrees in Aries, 24 degrees, and no, sorry, it's 27 degrees, I'm sorry, because it's 24 degrees of another cardinal sign is where Pluto is. So there's a square happening between the full moon and the sign of Capricorn where Pluto is based. And that is quite a dark and possibly quite a scary challenge going on there, something quite intense. And again, to go back to what I said about the relationship between this full moon and any cardinal signs that you may have in your chart, that's something to look out for. If you know your chart and you know the rising sign of the chart, then you can identify which house or place the full moon will fall into, and then you can identify where Pluto in Capricorn is as well. So this is quite an intimate revelation for you at a personal level, but we may see it echoed for humanity as a whole when that full moon links up as a square with Pluto. Quite intense. Now, what can be helpful here, I think, and this is the way I'm going to do these moon videos, having drawn one of the angel script cards from the angelic writing, and we've had Zade the Hermit, I'm now going to ask for another card from another alphabet called the celestial writing, and those are the characters we use in Shefa, in the Shefa method of meditation, and also in Shefa healing. So there's another pack of cards that I have, and there are 22 of these. And what I like to check out, I like to cross-refer them, because they are also called the same names in Hebrew, but they give us some kind of different or expanded higher vibrational insight. So Zade is the Hermit, and in this group of cards, Zade, we put him up there, it up there. Zade, which is, as you can see, quite a different configuration and shape, is called strong leadership. Now that's a very special and particular card that could be worked with when the full moon is in Aries, because Aries has got a great capacity for leadership. And when things are getting intense, because the moon is in square to Pluto, the full moon is in square to Pluto, what you need is a sense of strong leadership. You need to move into a place where you are not swayed by fear or doubt. And fear and doubt are anxiety modes that are very prevalent in today's situation. And strong leadership will allow us to look towards the light ahead. There we come. So it's single pointed. There's a direction there, and then there's a light ahead that's calling to say, keep your mind on the light ahead, right? And don't succumb to doubt and fear. And then the last card that I'm going to draw also comes from the angel script, but I'm going to show you one of the Archangel cards that come from the same deck. And you can see more of these on the website if you want to find out more. So this Archangel is the governing spirit, if you like, for the planet Mars. And Mars is the governor, in turn, of the zodiac sign of Aries. Also governs Scorpio. We might have to talk about that next month. So here we are, here's Hanael. Definitely a strong leader. You can see his breastplate is whizzing with energy. His head is way up there in the heavens, vibrating with a huge amount of quite fearsome energy, actually, and has the capacity, Hanael, to direct the light of God, sometimes called, or the glory of God, or victory in the Kabbalah is another word used connected with Hanael. So a very yang archangel, a spiritual warrior. And of course that's very much associated with the idea of Aries going out to do battle. The battle may not be a physical battle where heads are lost, bayonets are used, or worse. It may not be that kind of battle. It can be an interior battle. After all, the hermit is dealing and wrestling with his own inner demons, sorting out the stuff within. And that is something for us all to do, especially at this time of year in this particular part of the world where we are going into the darker nights. It becomes interior. How are we going to come out next spring when the new moon will be in Aries and a different vibration? So I hope that's been helpful for you. We've had Zade as the Hermit, Zade as strong leadership, and Hanael, the Archangel, who can overlight a situation with a kind of reconciliation of potency. And what I mean by that is that whenever things seem tricksy, like they are contrary to each other, or where something has to be sorted out and clarified, the Archangel energy can overlight that in a way which sees a higher perspective. So that's why it's so useful to work with archangels, because astrology tells us a great deal about our personal circumstances. It can tell us a great deal about our inclinations, our character, our drive, the kind of destiny that we're working through in this particular incarnation. And it tells us about time, when things will happen. So it's like learning to understand the tides. If you're a sailor, you can, or watching the weather, so that you know how to deal with being incarnated. But when you bring the archangels into it, you can overcome what can appear to be limitations and challenges and difficulties, because you are bringing in divine grace. Every archangel carries a different kind of divine grace, and that can overrule limitations and challenges, and can take you out of a situation, see it in a new perspective, come back into the situation and know how to deal with it. So I hope this has been helpful for you. Leave your comments below. Go to Theolyn.com. If you're not subscribed there, make sure you're subscribed, because very often I'm sending out emails with offers and invitations. And I'd like to see your name on the subscription list, because I'd like to introduce you to some more of my work. On the website you will find quite a lot of information about the archangels, and a back list of videos about them. So many blessings, and I'll be making another video in a couple of weeks' time for the new moon, which will be in the sign of Scorpio. Many blessings.